On 5 News, Calais is cleared. Much of the camp known as the Jungle is now ablaze or destroyed. France says the operation to remove the migrants is now over. So will that mean an end to scenes like this, or has the problem simply been moved elsewhere? Also, a breakthrough treatment for autism. How a new method of training parents is helping their children have a better life.
I think that the idea that we could interact with therapists and learn from them to become not just good parents, but super parents. I mean, it is proper super parenting.
Why flushing wipes down the toilet is costing millions and causing misery in clearing blockages. And recognition at last. Hugh Laurie finally makes his mark on Hollywood's Walk of Fame.
Now Hugh will spend eternity having chewing gum and dog poo trodden into him.
Hello, welcome to 5 News. I'm Matt Barbette. For months, it's been a painful symbol of the migrant crisis. And today, less than 72 hours after the bulldozers first moved in, the so-called Calais jungle has been cleared. The last of these 7,000 or so people who've been staying there have been removed, although not before some started fires that ripped through their makeshift homes. The authorities hope it marks the end of the notorious camp. For the people who live there, though, the future remains anything but certain, as Simon Viger reports.
Day 3 and the fires burned out of control. The Calais authorities say the camp is now clear. They've been tearing down the shacks, but the fire does much the same job. Black smoke from burning tarpaulins filling the air. The council denies it started the fires. Some officials blame anarchists who've based themselves in the jungle, while others say some of the migrants did it. This government official says the community leaders have told us that it's a tradition which is very established. When you go, you burn. The problem is all of the cooking gas cylinders in the shacks. Some have exploded, so that is slowing the rest of the demolition. Outside the camp, some try to get onto the refugee list for the UK, while most are bussed to other centres within France. There have been several camps over the years, all of them causing tension and a blame game between France and the UK. At its worst, lorry drivers were being blockaded and attacked as people tried to stow away. The jungle grew up on a landfill site near the road to the ferries. The official population was between 6,000 and 7,000, but no one really knew, and the charities thought it was much higher, with hundreds of unaccompanied children. Today, this apocalyptic scene is more reminiscent of a war zone. As the fires were put out, a few migrants went back in, but this is the end. The people of Calais have finally got what they wanted, but whether it will stop the port being a magnet is very much in doubt. Simon Viger, 5 News.
Here, a groundbreaking study is offering new hope to parents of children who have autism, and it doesn't involve medicine. Instead, scientists filmed mums and dads playing with their kids. They then watched the footage back and gave tips on what they could do better. It's known as super parenting. And as our chief correspondent Tessa Chapman reports, the results have been dramatic.
Sophia is a chatty young girl now, but at the age of 3, her autism meant she couldn't speak. The transformation's been remarkable, and her mum puts it down to a trial therapy as a toddler. They were filmed together during play sessions. Then Olga viewed the footage with experts who gave her feedback and tips to use at home.
I could see that the observation of my child with the help of a specialist was teaching me so much. And then realization that, you know, you're a carer, not only a parent, you're a carer for somebody who is special or different, and just fantastic results.
The year-long trial involved 152 families with children aged between 2 and 4. Half of the families were given the usual therapies. 50% of those children were severely autistic at the beginning, and that percentage increased as expected to 63% 6 years later. But the opposite happened in the families given the intensive training. 55% of the children were severely autistic at the beginning, falling to 46% at the end of the study. The researchers who designed the trial are delighted.
Children with autism communicate in an unusual way. And it can be very perplexing for even the best parent can find this perplexing. So this isn't anything to do with parents not being good enough. This is about creating really enriched super parents, parents who are really doing better than average to really cope with this challenge.
Autism affects 1 in 100 people. TV presenter Cary Grant's daughter Imogen is one of them. A diagnosis can be daunting, but they say this study offers hope.
It probably took us about 5 years to really fully understand what it was we were dealing with. Wouldn't it be nice if someone who's really experienced in all of this could just tell you that on day one, so that you could start feeling, OK, I'm getting equipped immediately. And hopefully that will lead to less interventions being needed later on.
Researchers stress they haven't discovered a cure, but they have found a vital piece of the jigsaw in a complex condition.
Tessa, it's a remarkable breakthrough. Obviously, these parents we've heard from are very pleased with it. What's a reaction from experts, though?
Well, they're applauding it too, partly because this wasn't intensive or invasive for the children. It involved an awful lot of work for the parents, but they were then able to take this feedback home and just embed it into their normal family life. Now, importantly, the National Autistic Society has welcomed this work, but they point out that this is about early intervention, ideally for the ages of 2 to 4. Many children, though, are waiting until much later in their childhood to get that diagnosis. Now, perhaps if that can be addressed, this could really be a groundbreaking move for millions of people.
There's still quite a gap there. OK, Tessa, many thanks indeed. The 2 UKIP MEPs who were involved in an altercation at the European Parliament have been referred to the French police. Former leadership favourite Stephen Wolfe was left in hospital after the incident 3 weeks ago. Mike Hookham denies hitting him. This afternoon, UKIP has formally reprimanded Mr Hookham but said he can't be held fully responsible. Vodafone has been fined more than £4.5 million for breaching consumer protection rules. The communications watchdog found it wasn't handling customer complaints properly, and it failed to credit 10,000 pay-as-you-go customers' accounts after they'd apparently topped up. And the pay gap between men and women in the UK is at its narrowest for nearly 20 years. Over the past 12 months, the difference in wages fell to just under 10%, but campaigners say the gap is still closing at a snail's pace. The speculation may have been ended, but the fallout from the decision to expand Heathrow Airport continues. At Prime Minister's Question Time today, Theresa May was challenged by one of her own MPs over its environmental impact. Well, there's also a fierce by-election battle in store after the resignation of another Conservative MP yesterday. Our political editor Andy Bell has more.
The day after the Heathrow decision, and the problems are stacking up. For the first time, we heard from the Prime Minister, put on the spot today by one of her own MPs, demanding to know if anyone had looked at the environmental assessments that go with this decision.
We took extra time to look at those. That was from the decision to increase airport capacity in the southeast. We wanted to look more particularly at the air quality issues. The evidence shows that air quality standards can be met as required by all 3 of the schemes, including the Northwest Runway at Heathrow.
An answer dismissed by another Conservative MP who's resigned to force a by-election.
And we will see, I believe, in a few weeks' time that people will come out in force and they will vote against Heathrow expansion. This is fundamentally a referendum on Heathrow expansion.
Well, that's what you would like it. You'd like it to be that. Well, isn't there a danger that it can turn into something else?
I don't think there is. I think it's very clear. I mean, I've initiated this. I've triggered the by-election very clearly on the back of a decision made by government.
Zach Goldsmith says he wants to make this by-election a referendum on them. But is it really going to be that simple?
The Liberal Democrats also oppose Heathrow expansion, but want to make this by-election about government plans for leaving the EU.
The damage done to jobs across London, across the country, but particularly in this constituency and to livelihoods in general, is absolutely immense. And the way to send a message to Theresa May about not just Heathrow, but about the direction our country is wrongly taking, is to back the Liberal Democrats.
So what do the voters think? Is it about Heathrow?
It is a referendum on that question because it's an issue that really concerns this community. It really concerns me. There goes the plane now. Can you even hear me speaking? That's our problem.
For what? I mean, you can't. They won't defeat the airport. It'll go through in the end.
It shouldn't be about Brexit at all.
Okay.
And he's a very, very good constituency MP.
I'm not very keen on voting for Zach either way, so I'm afraid that would tip my vote.
However, it turns out this by-election won't be enough to stop Heathrow expansion, but it might just be part of something bigger which prevents a smooth landing for this government plan.
Andy, political problems are certainly one thing, but there are some practical problems with the Heathrow runway plan as well.
Oh, some massive problems, Matt, and not least what to do about the M25, because the plan is that this new runway at Heathrow will basically go through the M25, probably at the point in the country where it's the busiest motorway traffic in the entire country. So what to do about that? Initially it had been thought that somehow the road would be taken underneath, in a tunnel underneath the new runway. Now Chris Grayling, the Transport Secretary, has suggested that it could instead be that the runway will go in the form of a ramp over the top of the existing M25. Chris Grayling described it as a cheaper and quicker way of building that runway. We'll have to see if that's really going to be plausible.
All right, Andy, thanks a lot. Still to come on the programme. Wiping out blockages. Why are bad habits costing us a fortune?
My leg doesn't hurt.
You're in denial.
No, I'm not!
And bringing the house down, Hugh Laurie makes a very British mark on Hollywood's Walk of Fame. Check out those socks. All that and more after the break. Welcome back. You're watching 5 News. More than 100,000 people have now signed a petition calling for maternity and paternity leave to be extended for those who have premature babies. Its backers say too many parents miss out on vital bonding time at home because they've spent much of their leave in hospital. One mum has been telling Warren Nettleford she wants others to have a better experience than she did.
I was at home getting ready to go to work and my waters broke suddenly, and a few hours later I had become a mum. But I hadn't become a mum because my baby was taken straight away, being resuscitated in neonatal intensive care. I wasn't able to see him or hold him or touch him.
Life for Samuel didn't begin in the way his mum Katrina expected. 5 years on, he's healthy and he now has a little brother too. But those first 10 weeks of his life, spent in a neonatal unit, were traumatic. And Katrina was shocked to discover her maternity leave would begin the day after her son was born, months before she'd get to take him home.
Although I'm years now past neonatal care, the journey still does stay with you. 40% of mums who've been in neonatal intensive care go on to develop postnatal depression. Over half have symptoms of anxiety and PTSD. And those mothers aren't ready to return back to work. They really do need longer to be able to bond with their baby and to recover.
She's now started a campaign to change the law. More than 100,000 people have signed her petition, calling for extended maternity leave for the mothers of premature babies. And it's a campaign backed by her MP.
What we're trying to do is change the law to extend maternity and paternity leave for parents whose babies are born premature, to recognise the additional burdens and time placed on the parents who are struggling to get their child to live.
The recognition of the extra strain that premature births puts on mothers has seen support from families.
When the baby is born, you need to maximise the time that you have with that child to bond with it and kind of look after it as you would if it was born full term.
The time spent in the hospital is nothing like the time that you're going to be spending at home when you're with your children and, you know, developing that bond with them. In the hospital, it's kind of an antiseptic environment.
In New Zealand, the law has already been changed, and in Parliament here today, MPs discuss the issue for the first time. A potential first step towards a change in support for new mothers. Warren Nettleford, 5 News.
Next, they are blighting our beaches, blocking our sewers and costing tens of £millions a year to clean up. And now there are calls for urgent action on wet wipes. Conservationists say even though many brands claim they are flushable, they're in fact causing huge problems. Olivia Kinsley's been finding out some of the unpleasant truths.
Britain's love of wet wipes grows and grows. They're quick, convenient, but potentially a huge problem if you put them down the loo. Every day at these sewage works in Reading, Barry pulls blockages from the pipes. He says it's mostly wet wipes. This is what he's collected just since last night. Now water companies and charities want all wet wipes to be labelled "Do Not Flush."
It depends what you term by flushable. I'm sure there's many things that you or I could try and flush down the toilet that I wouldn't call flushable, be it my pen, these glasses. And that's the real problem, is that these wet wipes, they go down the sewer and therefore they combine with the fats, the oils, the greases to form those hard fatbergs, and that's what leads to the blockages.
In the UK, up to 80% of blockages are caused by wet wipes and other unflushable items. This costs water companies and taxpayers £88 million a year to clean up. In 2015, the Marine Conservation Society found more than 50 wet wipes per mile of coastline. That's a rise of 400% over the past decade.
This is standard toilet paper. Put it into water. Give it a shake. You can see it dissolves pretty quickly. This, on the other hand, is a wet wipe which said flushable on the label. It's already been in here for about 10 minutes. And if we take it out, take a look, you can see it's still intact.
The body that represents wet wipe manufacturers says there's no proof it's the ones labelled flushable causing the problems. In fact, the EDANA says the answer is consumer education.
Would you flush these down the loo? No. Why not?
Because they're not flushable. Block it up. Yeah, they're not flushable.
I know it says they are, but they're not.
Yeah, I would.
You wouldn't be worried about them blocking the loo?
I probably would be kind of worried, but I think I just flush them because they say they're flushable.
Probably not, no.
Even though they say flushable?
Oh, well, then I would.
To avoid confusion, probably best to put them in the bin. Olivia Kinsley, 5 News.
From down the loo to Waterloo next, as all 4 members of ABBA are to perform together for the first time in more than 30 years. The legendary Swedish pop group parted ways in 1982 after more than 10 years as a band. Full details of their new project are yet to be released, but it's been described as a new virtual reality entertainment experience. Finally, whether it's as Stephen Fry's partner in crime, the hapless George in Blackadder, or the slightly more sophisticated Doctor in House, Hugh Laurie has been as versatile as he has entertaining. And now he's been honoured in Hollywood. He's unveiled his very own star on the Walk of Fame outside a rather appropriate place, as Minnie Stevenson explains.
Hugh Laurie! Now, Hugh Laurie may be famously humble, but there is no denying your star status once Hollywood has set your name in stone. But despite reaching the dizzy heights of the Walk of Fame, Hugh still remembered his roots and his novelty socks.
I read fearful news in this morning's paper.
Oh, no. Not another little cat caught up in a tree.
Of course, it was in British comedy that the actor made his name. How can you forget his bumbling Prince George in Blackadder? From the UK to LA, Hugh said he could not believe he'd cracked America.
I don't know if you Yanks fully understand what this means to someone who was born and raised 5,000 miles away from here, who for the first 30 years of his life only knew anything of this country because of the records I listened to and the films I saw and the television shows I watched. That's all I knew.
Where exactly are you?
If anyone should happen to ask, I'm at an out-of-state medical conference until further notice.
Hugh's Hollywood star comes after his 12-year success as a bad-tempered doctor in the US TV series House. It not only won him an army of American fans, but 2 Golden Globes.
Who told you that you were naked?
You may have lost me there, Arnold.
And it doesn't matter how globally famous you are, you can always rely on your comedy partner from the Fry and Laurie days to keep you grounded.
And so we come here to the epicenter of the entertainment capital of the world, the very eye of the galaxy, where it is the tradition in this marvelous town to reward stars by bringing them right down to earth. So far down to earth that now Hugh will spend eternity having chewing gum and dog poo trodden into him.
Got a girl? No, sir. All alone. I suppose we all are in the end, aren't we?
The star, who recently went to the dark side as a bad guy in The Night Manager, has become one of the highest paid actors on US TV. And it's worth noting that Hugh's Hollywood star is right by a British pub. So in the bright lights of LA, he'll always feel at home. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News.
Good to see a bit of Fry and Laurie there. That's it for now. I'll be back, though, at 6:30 with 5 News tonight. We're talking about all sorts of things. We'll be discussing that new treatment for kids with autism, also offending amongst young adult criminals. I'll be joined by an ex-offender to talk about criticisms of the government's approach to rehab. And do you know your neighbours? I'll be talking to the creator of Brookside and Hollyoaks about why so few of us get on well with the people next door. That's why I do this on my own. That's it for now. I'll see you again in an hour. Bye-bye.